or pharmaceutical company.
Ladies and gentlemen, the event is about to begin. Kindly take your seat and remember to turn your phone to silent or vibration mode. Thank you. So good afternoon and a very warm welcome to TTA. For today's event, the Top U.S. University Startup Forum, we are so honored to have Dr. Laura Smoliar, founding partner of Berkeley Catalyst Fund, and Dr. Michael Lu, Dean of UC Berkeley School of Public Health, who flew from the U.S. to share their experience and insights with us. So if you're curious about how top universities turn scientific research into research-inspired startup, this is definitely the event for you. So to kick off today's event, please join me in welcoming Dr. Louis Chen, the General Director of CIS at the Industrial Technology Research Institute, to give his welcome remark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rolla and Dr. Michael, and also Dr. Huang. Thank you, everybody. This is very great honor to have our three very good VIP to be here. If you don't know that, the Laura is a very experienced investor for a long time. We met together when she was the managing director of the Global Innovation Fund. And we'll have a lot of the deal flow, investing deal flows from Taiwan right now. And our team, Dr. Michael Lu, actually is the mentor and child bureaus of Obama, the directors of the bureaus of the Obama. Is well experienced. Many of our startup teams told me that when you have the problems and then to discuss with the Dean Lu, and then just one phone call, everything will be solved. And our Professor Wang actually just said that he is the top 2% of scientific recently. Well, congratulate them. And he also in the Facebook to say, hey, we have the panelists today and here, come to challenge me. So everybody to talk. Come to challenge me. All right. I would like to say that a very thank to our National Science Tech Councils to build the TTA actually in 2018, from 2018. Actually, TTA is planned as the ecosystem hub in Taiwan, in charge to cultivate our startup team talents and also the voice of Taiwan startup, and also get the relation and resources connected from Taiwan to Silicon Valley and also to the world as well. So it is quite important for us right now to have these three VIP here to tell us what are the university momentums create the startup momentums on the campus, and also involved in the startup activity as well. So we probably could also think about it. How could you gonna to ask them, or I will help you to ask them that how could our startup to link to the U.S. university resources as well, the well-connected way. These are all of the preparation for all of the startup here. And then we got to think about how we have the good, better futures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. So now it is my great privilege to introduce you to our special guest today. First, we have Dr. Laura Smoliar. She's one of the 3 founding partners of the Berkeley Catalyst Fund, which focus on the vibrant startup ecosystem around UC Berkeley, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, UC San Francisco, associated incubators, accelerators, and alumni throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. She has over 20 years of high-level scientific management and venture experience. She has served as an industrial scientist, a technical program manager, and a startup founder. Let's all welcome Laura with a big round of applause.
Thank you very much, and thank you to NSTC for putting this on. It is so exciting to be back in Taiwan. This is my first visit in over 3 years due to COVID, and I really missed being here. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I used to come to talk about the idea of Berkeley Catalyst Fund, and of course now it's a real fund, and so it's wonderful to come back and see all my friends who helped me get to this place. So I'm going to talk to you about the story of Berkeley Catalyst Fund. But first, I need to give you some context, because you're probably wondering why somebody like me, who looks like me, is in Taiwan all the time. So I did my PhD with Y.T. Lee at Berkeley, and he's a Nobel laureate in our College of Chemistry. And when I was getting ready to write my thesis, he brought me to Taiwan because he became president of Academia Sinica, and he had started an institute for atomic and molecular sciences on the campus of the National Taiwan University. And so he took 2 of us with him, me and another woman named Cheryl Longfellow, and everybody thought we were sisters. We went everywhere together. And it was a wonderful experience working in the labs here and finishing my thesis. And then I also did work in Hsinchu at the Synchrotron Radiation Research Center, which in those days didn't have the national in front of it. Now it has a new name, I guess. So, and then I needed to drive between Taipei and Hsinchu, which is why I had a driver's license. And I keep that as a memory of my time here. So the story of Berkeley Catalyst Fund really starts with an amazing philanthropist named Alan Mendelson. Alan is really the father of this whole enterprise. And he's sadly passed away now, but he inspired us to think about how can we build a fund that can financially benefit the university. And this is not a simple problem in the US due to the way our tax codes are written. And so it was quite a challenge, and he had given money to try to initiate this, and it sat for 5 years in a pending account because nobody knew what to do, really. And we were asked by the dean of the College of Chemistry to try to figure out how to make this work. And really at the heart of it, I think, was this notion of, can you combine traditional venture capital behavior, which is very much a capitalistic kind of behavior, with philanthropy, which is an important mechanism for getting money to universities. And So this is where it started, was with the challenge from Alan to figure out how to make this work. Despite what many people thought, which is that you can't make it work, we did manage to figure out how to make it work. And I did this with two partners, Ted, who was my lab mate in graduate school, so we've known each other for a good 30 years, and then Drew Lanza, who was a retired venture capitalist from Morgan Thaler Ventures, which is a very established venture capital firm. And we formed what we call a hybrid fund, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So the Berkeley Catalyst Fund in the for-profit world was the three of us. And then we had a sister philanthropic fund called Berkeley Catalyst Philanthropic Fund. And that was managed by the Dean of the College of Chemistry, Doug Clark, and Camille Olafson, who manages his development work. And really the key to all of this is there was a lot of trust in navigating the system to get all the right stakeholders on board. And I've known Camille since I was a graduate student, and so we had a really special relationship that helped us get the job done. And we brought Doug and Camille to Taiwan many times, and Taiwan was an important part of getting this going. So, if you think about normal venture capital interests, they squarely sit in the for-profit world. You generally have a fund, which is actually three entities. That's a detail, but you have financial investors. We call them limited partners or LPs. These are people who are high net worth individuals or sometimes companies that put money into a fund, and then they get a profit back once there's money to be made. And then you have fund managers who are called general partners, and they get some piece of that profit normally. The fund invests in companies we call portfolio companies. And when those companies are sold or go public, hopefully the fund makes profit. So that's the normal activity in the for-profit world. In the nonprofit world, it's very different. You have philanthropists who are donating money to the university, and usually they're motivated by getting a tax break. And so at Berkeley, we have a foundation called UC Berkeley Foundation that manages a lot of these donations into the university, and they can channel it to a specific place in the university. So in our case, we're dealing with the College of Chemistry, so I highlighted that here. But that bright line in between, the dotted line, from a legal standpoint, there's a big separation. Those two worlds don't really interact very well. And so it's very hard to cross money between them unless you do it carefully. But that's what we had to figure out, was how do we make this hybrid fund structure work? And so the green arrows are the connection points. So from the philanthropic side, the UC Berkeley Foundation can be a limited partner in our fund. The university itself is not allowed to do that. And so that was really a key learning, and the foundation can aggregate donor checks, which tend to be smaller than the normal limited partner check, and invest those into the fund as a single limited partner, and then get the return and channel that return to the College of Chemistry. And in addition, as general partners, my co-founders and I agreed that we would share what would normally be our managing profit with the College of Chemistry. And so that's what that green arrow off the GP return is. So those monies go back to the foundation and they get channeled to the College of Chemistry. And particularly that GP return sharing, that's called sharing carry, because the money that goes to general partners is generally called carried interest. And so that notion was a new idea at the time. Once we were able to establish that this model was okay, it was legal, we talked to many, many lawyers at the university, got them all on board. then it was a replicable model. And so Blue Bear Ventures took on our model. They fund another accelerator called the Citrus Foundry. And Skydeck has, I think, a little bit different model, but they also share carry. So this notion took off. And there are now more and more funds forming in this fashion. So forming a fund from scratch was a whole endeavor. And I found that while there are a lot of people who work in venture capital in Silicon Valley, at the time, there weren't that many who had started a fund from scratch. So I really benefited from close relationships with our attorneys in learning this. And we built a great firm. So we had an operations manager. We have fund accounting from Linda, who used to audit funds, and we are an audited fund, so she prepares us for that. We had excellent representation from Morrison & Forrester. Lee Shepard was our lead fund attorney there. Mike Phillips is retired from Morrison & Forrester. He was my longtime attorney as an entrepreneur, and he shepherded me through the process, and then he retired after we closed the money into the fund, and he joined us as a legal advisor, his retirement gig, and that was very strategic to have a lawyer as part of our team. We also have close relationships with our tech transfer at Berkeley, so Carol Amora runs that, and the UC Berkeley Foundation with Lorraine Binion, who's the treasurer there. And then I got a lot of help from Regis Kelly, who's now retired. He was a former vice chancellor at UCSF and had founded QB3, which is a life science incubator, it's still going, and also Mission Bay Capital, which was a predecessor fund that had part of our model. And so he was a huge help to me. And then we have specialized tax accounting for funds from Meishu, and Carolyn Glass does a lot of our portfolio company accounting. So you really need a whole team to make this work. And then Taiwan was a huge, huge part of making this work. And so I have so many pictures from my trips to Taiwan, but I picked a few today to try to highlight. So this whole notion of philanthropy combined with venture capital, I think it's really embodied by Robert Chen from PMP. And you can see him there with our dean of the College of Chemistry, Doug Clark, in that upper left picture. He surprised us all. He came in as an investor into our fund. He was new to Berkeley. And then he said, I really like what you're doing. I want to meet the professors. And then he became a major donor to the College of Chemistry. So that was an unexpected thing that and then other people joined in on this. And so the notion that we would be bringing financial investors in as donors to the university was never anticipated, but it actually was a really nice thing. And you can see Robert brought his whole, a big team to visit the College of Chemistry, and that relationship is a huge benefit for the college. We also met with the local Berkeley Club of Taiwan, hosted at the Regent Hotel. Stephen Pan and Constance Chang are the owners, and they're also Cal alums. So they did a fantastic job of hosting us. And in that picture on the far side to the left there is Dr. Miao. He was at ITRI at that time. And he was a key person for me. I went to graduate school with him, and he was always the person that I call when there's a startup in California that needs some supply chain help that I know is sitting in Taiwan, but they don't know how to access it. And I could call Dr. Miao, and he would talk to the company, figure out who they needed to meet, and help them here. I could send the team here. On the ground, he would help them here. So we've been doing this for years, very sort of unofficially, and I think that now with what's going on with supply chains in the US and the desire to change them, there's a huge opportunity actually to do this in a more regular fashion. And you can see Constance Chang in that picture as well, so from the Regent Hotel. And also on the far right is Renee Wang, who's here. Yeah. Renee went to the business school. And so when we came to Taiwan, actually there were a lot of alums from the business school who were very excited about what we were doing. And that was also a great help. And then on the lower picture here, we have CJ Chen here, who's here. And I've known CJ since I was about 19 years old, when I was an undergraduate at Columbia. And then we were at Berkeley together, and we keep working together. And CJ's been amazing at helping us on the ground here in Taiwan. And next to him is VP Lee, who was at the National Taiwan University's Business School, and he also really helped us. So the Berkeley Catalyst Fund 1, it was a first-time fund, sized at $25 million. We built a nice portfolio you can see on the right, lots of companies, many of them from the College of Chemistry, which was kind of a new thing. And we had a first exit in December of 2020 of 4D Molecular Therapeutics, which was Dave Schaefer was the faculty member in that. And that was a gene therapy company. So, and they currently have 5 different therapies in the clinic and going strong. So, so that was kind of right before COVID really hit hard. But I have to say, all these companies have survived through COVID, which is amazing. And I really think all our CEOs deserve a medal for what they've had to go through. But it's a nice portfolio. I'm going to take you through a few stories. And these are companies where I did the investment and sit on the board. So I led the investment round. Nalumbo is the first one. Nalumbo came out of a program that's called Activate. It's the Activate Berkeley was done in conjunction with the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, which sits right next to the Berkeley campus. The founders are from Berkeley. The CEO at the time was 20 years old. He was on leave from the chemical engineering department, and an extraordinary young man. So, you know, I say there are no hard and fast rules about who can be a CEO. So Liam has just impressed me. And he's amazing, given his experience. But he went on to build this company, and after our initial $5.5 million round, there was a next round that was led by Prime Rivers Lab and University of Tokyo Edge Capital. And I met, that we call UTEC. I met UTEC first in Taiwan at an event here. And then I met them again in Japan. And they were actually a great prototype for Berkeley Catalyst Fund because they were doing a similar idea with University of Tokyo. And then also in this next round was Darwin Venture Capital from Taiwan. And this is important because this company has a lot of opportunity in Japan and Taiwan and Asia in general. And both UTEC and Darwin have actually ended up being some of the most important firms in this deal in terms of helping these guys. And during COVID, UTEC actually stepped up and acted as business development in Japan because founders couldn't fly. So it's been a huge success. And what they do is we call nanostructured surfaces. So if you're familiar with something called PFAS, which is fluorinated chemicals, found in like Teflon or waterproof jackets, things like that. We're trying to get rid of those. They're not good for you, and it's not good. They're not good for the environment. And so, Nalumbo has a nanostructured technology that makes surfaces very water repellent, and it can be used in a variety of ways. The next company is a synthetic biology company at its core. making human milk oligosaccharides. Those are the sugars found in human milk. They're actually very important in infant nutrition. And I learned through this company that sort of the normal baby formula that you buy is nutritionally equivalent to an American hot dog, which is kind of frightening. And the idea behind this company is to make really nutritious baby formula and to do it based on what human milk really looks like. And so this is a young founder from, she's got a PhD from the College of Chemistry in chemical engineering, and she's originally from Korea. And the faculty founder is Jamie Kate, who is here, and he is in molecular and cell biology and the College of Chemistry. And this has been a really interesting exercise. Chaeyoung, the CEO, has built a team of really experienced folks around her, as you can see here. Some of you may recognize Jennifer Doudna. She's also an investor in this endeavor. And this company, this was not a company when I first met this project. It was a professor with intellectual property and an idea. So we created the company with him. His name is Omar Yagi. He's famous for creating what are called metal organic frameworks. It's a new class of materials. And he had a special version that could pull water at a very arid air. And the idea was to make a water harvester, so for drinking water. Professor Yagi comes from Jordan originally, stressed area of the world, and so it was very personally important to him. And so we formed the company, and actually the company has gone through a lot of different challenges. Making clean water is very exciting. It's hard to fund. So we have pivoted to dehumidification. And what did I think of then? I thought about my August in Taiwan. So there's a market for that, okay? And actually, one of our engineers, David Kuo, somebody I worked with in my first job, so decades ago. He's from Taiwan. He's leading the engineering effort. And, first when COVID hit, we thought about moving this company to Taiwan altogether, because we couldn't even go to the office or labs in the US, but things are still functional here. We didn't do that, but they are making use of a lot of supply chain resources in Taiwan. And we actually had a visitor from your deputy minister of the EPA, Dr. Tsai, recently. So this is an exciting one. So as a fund, you need to work with other funds, and you need other funds to come into your deal after you've done your first investment. And so this is just showing kind of a constellation of funds that we have worked with. Some of them are from Taiwan, so Perseverance Capital is from Taiwan, Darwin Ventures is from Taiwan, UTech is from Japan, Horizons is from Hong Kong, and then you can see some of these are very large, like Viking and Pfizer, and some are other small ventures. It's a variety. Around Berkeley, we have many different sources of great deals, and the ecosystem for entrepreneurs is really amazing now. And so these are some of the institutes and opportunities that we have. So the Innovative Genomics Institute is famous for a lot of the CRISPR gene editing work. JBay is a powerhouse in synthetic biology. The Novartis Institute, we call that drugging the undruggable, the sort of figuring out how to access classically undruggable targets. That's a big area. The CARA and Kavli institutes are about material science, mostly in new nanomaterials. And Citrus Foundry is another accelerator, as is Skydeck, you heard about probably earlier. And And then some things that may be new are Activate is a 2-year fellowship for scientific entrepreneurs that started in Berkeley, but is now also in New York and Boston and remotely. And they do take overseas fellows. They just need to be able to work in the US. And this is an area that I think where universities can help to provide a landing pad. And then the newest thing that I'm excited about is the Baker Bioingenuity Hub, which is a giant life science incubator that can house about 80 life science startups, and it's run by David Schaefer now. And there's some pictures here. So at the root of this is a life science institute called QB3 that is multi-campus. It used to be headquartered at UCSF, and at the top left there, you can see a picture with Reg Kelly, who was the founder of QB3, and he ran it there until quite recently. He's now retired and handed the baton off to David Schaefer. So the headquarters has moved to Berkeley and is housed at this Bioingenuity Hub. And they also take foreign teams, by the way. They just got their first team from Singapore moving in. The Activate Fellowship is more in environment and sustainability areas. You can see the industries covered there. It's a fantastic opportunity for scientific entrepreneurs. It's 2 years of funding, plus funding for your company. It's a chance to really figure out what the business plan should be for your technology or new innovation. And then these are just some lessons learned. So, there was tremendous learning in setting this up, tremendous learning in running it. And so just some things that I think you have to keep in mind. The VC world and the university world are very, very different. They speak different languages. They often don't understand each other. And so it's really important that there's education and expectations that are appropriate set on both sides, and that just requires a lot of communication. I think it's important to understand that VC funds are a long-term proposition. They're not a quick fix for a budget crisis. And so, for universities, sometimes they're under very difficult budget conditions. I think COVID really challenged universities. So VC funds are not going to fix that right away. But in the long term, they are a good resource. There is tremendous opportunity to build companies from university innovations. When we were raising Berkeley Catalyst Fund, the most frequent question we got from potential investors is there going to be enough deal flow? And once I got into it, I just thought, what a ridiculous question. There was way more deal flow than we could process. So there's room for a lot of funds around any particular university. There's just so much going on. What's really important for the success of the startups is a robust ecosystem and network. Part of my goal in building Berkeley Catalyst Fund was to bring alumni back into the ecosystem. A lot of alumni wanted to help these startups, but they didn't know how to connect with them. So, and I think for Taiwan, it's the same. There's a huge desire among local Taiwan-born or even second-generation entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley to help the next generation. So I think that we just need to facilitate that. So in the US, I think there's a lot of hope for the future. We're pumping a lot of money into climate, as you may have heard, and I'm sure you heard about the CHIPS Act. But also healthcare, and we are creating this ARPA-H now. So you may have heard of ARPA-E. Before that was DARPA. These are all offices to help drive budget for the government. And so I think that these initiatives all seed new startups, so, and innovation. So thank you.
So thank you so much, Laura, for your keynote.
Thank you very much.
So now I hope everyone is as excited as I am for the next part of the events today, the top US University Startup Forum. First, please let me introduce you to our moderator, Dr. Louis Chen, the General Director at CIS, at the Industrial Technology Research Institute. Dr. Louis has over 20 years of experience in business development locally and internationally. He has worked and served as board of directors for several renowned international companies. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Louis Chen. Now, may I invite the panelists onto the stage? So first, Dr. Laura, who needs no further introduction. Next, we have Dr. Michael Lu. He's the Dean of UC Berkeley School of Public Health. He was formerly the director of the Maternal and Child Health Bureau with an annual budget of $1.2 billion and a portfolio of more than 100 federal programs, which serve more than 57 million women, children, and families annually. And during his tenure, he has helped transform key federal programs, launch major national initiatives to reduce maternal, infant, and child mortality rate in the US. And he was awarded the prestigious Hubert H. Humphrey Award for service to America. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Michael Lu. Last but not least, Dr. Hank Huang. Dr. Hank is a professor at the Department of Electronics Engineering at the National陽明交通University. He's also the director of IAPS or the Center of Industry Accelerator and Patent Strategy, the director of Venture Lab Program, as well as a startup founder and chief advisor. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Hank Huang. Now for today's forum, our panelists will dive into their experience of academic innovation and discuss how top universities translate research results into business, how entrepreneurial culture is promoted hand in hand with fundamental research, and how both are thriving. So Dr. Louis, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Laura. I thought that the moderator will speak very well. So translate the research technology to the business. I think that we have all of that is the deep tech base, and one of the very important mission of our science and technology hub actually is translate the technology value to the business oriented. So that's something we will see. We thanks Dr. Rola to give us the presentation to know, one, the VC should be a long-term consideration. And also the second one is the innovation from the university. And also the third thing is the connection and ecosystem are quite important. So this from the VC side is quite important. So probably I would like to ask our Professor Tim, the Michael. Well, see, probably you're talking to us that from your experience that how could the university create the startup momentums and join the startup activities in your experience? Thank you.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me just say hi to everyone. Even though I'm the dean at UC Berkeley right now, I am 100% MIT, made in Taiwan. I'm seeing that I'm very proud to be the first Taiwanese American dean of public health in the United States. So let me just maybe talk a little bit about what we're doing, and then I'll talk about the larger ecosystem. So the reason that I set up this Taiwan Berkeley Health Innovation program really has two major goals. One is to really help Taiwanese innovators, entrepreneurs, take their health innovations, and whether that's in biotech, whether it's in life sciences, into the US and global market. Right? And so basically, we partner with Skydeck. We are supported by the National Development Council of Taiwan. And we select the best and the most amazing startup companies they come to Berkeley, they go through 3 months of boot camp training to Skydeck, and then they come to spend another 3 months at the School of Public Health, where we provide the concierge service to help connect them with either subject content experts, with angel investors, and with the C-suite executives, and whether that's healthcare, whether it's pharmaceutical companies, whether that's biotech companies. Many of them are actually our alums, right? My school has about 18,000 alums, and there are like CEO of Merck and Gilead and a lot of these companies. And so that's where I become useful, because usually when the dean calls, people do pick up the phone and spend some time with our startups. And we've been able to show some pretty good results. In fact, 2 of the companies that we hosted from Taiwan went on to this global competition called Select USA that's hosted by the US Department of Commerce, and they're competing with all of these other global startups, and they actually won first and second prize this summer. So that's our program. But the second important goal that I really have for this program is that in the long run, I don't want this to be just one direction. Right? So I don't want to just go from Taiwan to Silicon Valley. But how do we bring Silicon Valley to Taiwan? How do we make sure that we're bringing the best companies from Silicon Valley to develop and manufacture in Taiwan? How do we actually create the next TSMC for biomedical innovations here in Taiwan? I was kind of reminded that it was really this Taiwan, Berkeley, Taiwan, Silicon Valley connection 30 years ago that spurred Taiwan's dominance in the whole semiconductor industry. So can we do something together to really help bring about that next industry, to really lift Taiwan's economy, and to really secure prosperity for Taiwan in the coming decades?
Thank you very much. But you think that are there any experience in your minds that how could you formulate the startup and pick up the startup like this setting from the university side?
Yeah, well, so I'll talk a little bit about the Berkeley experience, and certainly, Laura actually talked quite a bit about this already. So it really takes an entire ecosystem, right? And so what Berkeley has is, certainly it's got the academic programs, and there are a number of different academic programs that are trying to prepare the next generation of innovators, entrepreneurs. It also has the R&D space, right? So Laura just talked about the bioengineering hub. It has I think close to a dozen incubators and accelerators. So Skydeck, the School of Public Health, so we're one of the dozen of incubators and accelerators. It's got quite a bit of different funds. I think actually over 30 different funds, from both the small startup funds to something like the share carry funds, to the Catalyst fund. And then it's got a whole platform at the university level that to help with IP, to help with legal stuff, etc. So you create this full innovation ecosystem to try to encourage faculty and students to really bridge that valley of death, to accelerate bringing their idea, their product to market. So Rich Lyons, who was formerly Dean of Business at the Haas School of Business at Berkeley, now Berkeley's first Chief Innovation Entrepreneurship Officer, likes to ask this question. So I'll ask this question. Which university has the most funded startups in the United States? Actually, I think it might be. What do you think?
Stanford.
Stanford.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is the second?
Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Yeah.
Way above Harvard, Harvard, Columbia, and so forth. And remember, Berkeley is a public institution, right, with a public mission. And yet it's number 2 in the country, in the world. And so it's doing something right in terms of really creating that innovation ecosystem. And Laura's story is like just the perfect example of how do you actually create that sort of innovation ecosystem to support innovators and entrepreneurs taking their product to market.
Good, very good. Thank you very much. Professor Wang, I know that you are to help the startup to go global and also to help them to become a startup business already for many years, especially from the IP strategic planning, right? Would you just say something that how could you create the momentums, startup momentums in your lab or in your universities like this? And then how could you cultivate them?
Okay, I think Taiwan's probably 15 years back, there's not much. Before actually the collaboration was the history. So a lot of professors from our department actually, sort of set up the company, especially in the semiconductor area. And they actually joined the history and then set up the company. So that quite success at the time. But after a while, I think there's a window because we are more in the manufacturing oriented technology. So it seems that there's a big gap. There's not much startup have been set up from the university. So I think it's called which is the social network, social with among young generation have been set up as they're kind of shining because we are getting a lot of licensing fee from their involvements, and then suddenly there's quite a lot significant startup being created from the university by the students. The professor is not quite involved actually because professor at their mission they are not actually know the entrepreneur concept well until recently. There's a big push from the governments because each case like needs $1 million or $2 million USD, which is good incentive for them to push it through. But of course, there's an issue as well, right? Because they are not good in the management, they are good in scientists. There's still be some problems, right? And in order for them to go global, I would say probably put this way, right? Because like the professor of our department collaborate with Stanford. They have the knowing the strength of each side. We are very strong in the IC design. And actually, specific 2 examples, we work with the same professor. I think the Professor Wang, from the Silicon Valley is I think it's Wang Yongxiong. Actually, another Zhu one is very famous, the professor from Stanford as well. And they have very so-called the focus in terms of the outcome. The funding from Taiwan governments, and they have a joint collaborated. And so they have great success after 4 years as a company at the Silicon Valley and both in the operation in Taiwan. And so naturally, if has such a collaboration with a global partner, it will be more easy. For us to promote the team to go abroad is, especially Silicon Valley, very challenging. In fact, I have to say, if you originate from Taiwan and then like to go to Silicon Valley to set up the company, for the competition is very difficult. So strategically, probably will have to go to somewhere else first, and then go there. But still, I don't see very success story at this point. On the other hand, it's very easy relatively because they have agenda in terms of the competition, cutting edge. But they want to find a partner in Taiwan, joining set up a company. That would be much easier compared to the other way around. So from the university side, we are trying to push in more regional partners, try to understand the differences, and try to find a collaboration among 2 regions with the proper people involved. Not only science technology people, we also focus on in terms of who can actually help to run the company. With that kind of collaboration, I think that I see a lot of cases ongoing. It's quite success and got well funded. To this point, so I see the hope, but I have to be doing it properly, not try to see the Taiwan team go to the US and that will be success. Very challenging to achieve that.
Good, very thank you, sir. I thought that you already touched on the second topic, but we got to back to find out the answers soon. But we back to the topic one that Laura, do you think that from your VC side, how could we pick up the potential startup from the campus? And then how could you see what are the criterions of the startup that you see is probably good for investment?
So there's probably many ways to pick up these startups. My approach was to just go around and meet with faculty first and find out what was happening in their labs, what they were working on, and develop those relationships. Because the key thing was that they needed to be able to trust. So I always used to say I was their first safe phone call. So often if there's a faculty member who has, maybe they have something, but they're not really sure if it's ready, they will call me and ask if I can come take a look. It's sort of unofficial, nobody needs to know, and I can just try to assess it. The most common thing in the university is for faculty to think something's ready before it's really ready for venture capital. So there's a lot of things you can do to de-risk it before the venture capital step. So there's grants, and there's angel investments. So you need to, that's the art in this, is making an assessment of what is the next step, and where does this need to go. And it's hard for faculty to do that, I think, because they don't have a perspective. So and faculty talk to each other. So once I started water harvesting with Yagi, it seemed like I never talked about it, but suddenly I got a lot of phone calls from other faculty members. So the word got out, right? That if you want to do this, here's a phone number. So I think trust is really important. There's a lot of predatory behavior from venture capitalists, and the faculty know that. So they're nervous about it.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of insider, huh? At the university. Well, but from the other way, that are there any how the Stanford or Berkeley to encourage the students to start up the business?
So my experience is that students drive this.
Oh, really?
It's the university has had to catch up in helping them.
Okay.
I think there was always that energy or desire. I mean, some students may not have been as aware as they are now. But, for example, and also with faculty. So when I was a student, I taught for 2 years for Rich Matthews in the College of Chemistry and had no idea what he was doing down in Silicon Valley till years later when I was working. And I realized every gene sequencing company had him as an advisor. They were licensing his intellectual property from Berkeley. He was very active. When he became dean, I went to visit him and I said, "How come I didn't know this when I was a student?" He said, "Oh, I couldn't talk about it. That was not cool." And so he just did it very quietly because that was the culture. So I think for Berkeley particularly, it's just taken a long time to change the culture. But now it is really different. And he told me, "Oh, it's different." I think Stanford was different.
Wow, that's good. How about the Yangming Jiaoda? Is that like the Stanford or like in Berkeley?
The university more like faculty lead, the student kind of follow, so that's probably not a problem. But the professor usually have very good contact. I think that one time, not so sure it's true. When I was in Bell Lab, I decided to fly back to Taiwan as a faculty, and one of my colleagues said, "Oh, my brother was in the same department, so you will earn like 200 million NT dollar." I do the calculation, how could that be, right? So it seems that the professor have a strong collaboration with the industry, and they do a lot of technology transfer. Some of our professors are quite rich because the technology is to TSMC, for example. They get like 20 million every year. We get very good feedback, like 70%, 80% to the lender, right? So like they can get a good fortune. So as I said, they have very strong position, and so they will lead the student, but then some they actually lead another issues because they cannot be 100% dedicated. So they're kind of people behind the decision. So that create a little bit shortage in terms of how to make the company great and aggressive. So that's how actually happening in our university. We try to change that, but it's very difficult because the culture is difficult. But because our university is focused on semiconductor and IC communication, so our alumni is quite rich in a sense. Because my university at NTU, they go abroad, right? So professor somewhere, right? And then so the high growth of Taiwan industry actually our university have a good breadth of the fortune, and so the angel club, all the donation from alumni is quite strong and very strong in terms of innovation ecosystem as well. So I think we have to take the benefit from that too. But I think from the startup ecosystem, I think my university is quite strong. Institute, Yangmi is a completely different story, right? So now we kind of merge, and we're trying to take advantage from the medical side as well.
Wow, thank you. So your point is that we have a good relationship with the professor and the corporate, right? And also your alumni is quite rich, right? That's very good opportunity for the阳明交通student, right? And then how about Michael? Then you got to, from your experience, that you saw a lot of the university accelerators, and I think that some of the accelerator actually is still not that mature from technology side or something, right? How could you pick up the potential one you're looking at?
How do I pick up the potential startups?
Yes.
Yeah, well, no, I think our school of public health is a little different. So we're trying to keep our eyes on the prize, right? We're trying to accelerate health innovations for public health, for social good. So that's part of what we have. It's not just about the commercial value, but what good is it going to do in terms of saving lives, in terms of improving health. So I'll kind of give you an example of that right now. So there's this company that we've been working that's been developing this thing called Invisimask. And so it's basically a nasal spray made of monoclonal antibodies to COVID. One spray can last 12 hours and basically protect you from COVID. Basically, they've done the animal studies, looked pretty amazing. The reason they approached me is to help them design the clinical trials as well as get through the FDA EUA process. But the science is really super amazing. Jennifer Down, Warner Green from Gladstone at UCSF, a number of us are just kind of all in trying to really help them because we see the potential public health value. But what's really amazing about this company was that over the summer, as the variants start changing, and you got the BA4, BA5, and with monoclonal antibodies, you gotta keep developing new products in order to respond to new subvariants. So what they decided to do over the summer, they decided to, instead of continue with monoclonal antibodies, was to build these fusion proteins that mimics the action of ACE receptors, right? And so regardless of subvariant, they all have to bind to the ACE receptors. So basically it's capture and kill. And just by making that change, they're now going to be making a spray that would be ready for any type of subvariant that comes in. And by the way, then they also are now developing their next product, which is a mixture of COVID with flu, and so that when you spray, that they would actually protect you against COVID and flu. So this company is going somewhere. But more importantly, in terms of the not just the commercial value, because all of us are wearing our masks, and just going to get harder and harder to keep your mask on in a lot of situations. But if you have something like that, it also could be a game changer for public health as well. So that's part of the evaluation that I do in terms of which company that I will work with. I want to make sure that we keep our eyes on the prize and make sure that we are identifying startups that are bringing the product to market, not only for commercial, but like really important public.
Wow, that's point out very good questions that you pick up the potential ones from from the problem identification and also whether the solution whether they could really solve the problem or not. That's one thing. The second thing is that whether the problems you're gonna solve to have the social impact, a very high impact. That's the second question. So if you want to have a very good business in the world right now, then you got to identify your problem and really take out the good solutions, and then the problems should have the very good impact, right?
Louis, can I just underscore that point you just made?
Yeah.
I think it's a big cultural difference that I see, right? A lot of the Taiwanese startups start with the science and technology, right? And it's science and technology looking for a problem. I think a lot of the innovators and entrepreneurs that work in especially in the biomedical area, they start with the problems that you're trying to solve and figure out the science and technology to solve.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. Well, from the other side, back to the Professor Wang's question, if we have a lot of very good potentials startups, and then send them to the ST Hub at Silicon Valley, then how could you help them to reel down to the ground and build the business at there?
Defer to Laura, who's actually going to be running the
Well, I think, you really have to assess each startup individually. So for early phase, we really look at team as investors. So the team, and then do they know the product market fit, which is what you're talking about.
Okay.
And that is a challenge for a lot of technically trained entrepreneurs. We tend to get enamored with technology, but it's really that is critical. They may not know it yet. That doesn't mean there's something wrong there. But it does need focus. And that's one of the beauties of that Activate Fellowship. It gives you the breathing room to figure that out. And the problem is if you try to shortcut that process, you pay for it later. So that is really the key, I think.
I think that the right product for the right market is quite important. The different culture probably they have the different sense for the product spec or service spec, right? How could you help the teams to justify and then let them know the product spec way?
I think sometimes it's thinking about if you're sitting in Taiwan and thinking about market, it may be very different than if you're sitting in the US because we tend to think about much bigger markets geographically from the start. And I mean, this isn't just particular to Taiwan, I hear the same thing in Japan. The market is limited, right? And people are used to addressing that market, but not necessarily going beyond that. And I think our approach in the US to going into big markets is different. And so sometimes when I see teams from here, they're very focused on the technical side and not so much on a go-to-market strategy for a big market, for a global market. So I think it's just education.
Educations.
And mentoring,
All right. So what is that, Michael, that you're going to think about is that what kind of the resources, especially in the bioscience, what kind of resources that the startup could have a right way for the target market?
Yeah, so when I first established accelerator program. I thought that I could connect the founders with the technical experts, the amazing faculty that we have at Berkeley. Turns out that Taiwan science and technology are really good.
Right.
Okay, what the companies needed really is not help, the technical help. But they needed a lot of help with like the business strategy. They needed a lot of help with just understanding the market, right? So one of the companies we hosted was for soft tissue repair, right? The question is whether doctors in the United States would actually use that instrument. Right? So being able to connect them with the doctors that you see outside of other places, so that they get real feedback in terms of whether this is something that will be something that the doctors might adopt. Another company was doing using AI to brain imaging to do early prediction of dementia. Right? And it's something that certainly there's a market for here in Taiwan because of to like do as part of their annual exam, they want to see, am I getting Alzheimer's, right? They want to do this. But in a totally different context, that doesn't work in the United States because the regulations are different, the financing, the reimbursement is different, and so forth. And so like when they come over here, to the U.S. market, it's a whole different business strategy that you have to help them figure out. So those are kind of things that I think the hub, the program, would be helpful to them to really understand what the U.S. market and what the U.S. consumers can really need.
Yes, that's quite important. But I still have a question that I'm probably going to ask both of you that, in your experience, are there any startup who has a SA business development teams at the US and then the mother teams or the headquarters actually in Taiwan? Both of them cooperate very well. Still not, right?
But there actually is a startup out of Berkeley. Were from Taiwan originally, and I don't know which one is the headquarters, but they have a footprint in the U.S. and they were doing a lot of the work in Taiwan. And they were in both places. It's sensor technology for seeing if food is going bad. They changed their name a couple times, so I can't remember the name. But yeah, I don't have any bright shining examples. I would say the companies that have been sent to me are still very early, so it's hard to know if,
Or in your experience, what do you think the key success factor?
So here's the challenge. So what I did see was when COVID hit, there were teams from Taiwan that were supposed to go to Skydeck, and then COVID hit. So they stayed in Taiwan. They did it remote. So they ended up starting their companies in Taiwan instead of their plan was the U.S., right? And then in a way it was good because they got funding in Taiwan from the government and good start. But that does mean that their headquarters is here. They were filing their intellectual property here, starting that whole strategy. And it's still a question in my mind of what's going to happen when they go to the U.S. and try to raise money, because the U.S. investors are going to ask where, but they're going to want to invest in the entity that holds the intellectual property. And so some investors in the U.S. cannot invest in certain geographies, especially smaller funds in the U.S., they're usually limited to U.S. entity funding. So you need a fund that can invest here. So it's going to create some interesting challenges, I think.
I see.
But and I don't know how that will sort out yet, but I'm watching it.
Okay. Now, how do you think, Michael? The success factors, both two sides, management.
Yeah, again, this is whether that's the job in one company. This certainly in the life sciences and biotech, it's so capital intensive, right? And so if you think about like the Smoliar, right? So there's the R&D, there's the manufacturing, and then there's the marketing and branding. The way that biotech, the way that pharmaceutical companies are going, is that many of them are going to invest heavily in the R&D part and outsource the manufacturing part of things. So the question, like the broader ecosystem question for Taiwan is, which niche do you want to occupy, right? Does Taiwan actually have the ecosystem for R&D, right? Or should Taiwan be in the manufacturing business, right? Could Taiwan be the manufacturing for the world in terms of medical devices, smart medical devices, and pharmaceuticals? And is Taiwan doing all of that it can in terms of investment and government policies and so forth to make sure that we become a global leader in doing that the way that TSMC is a global leader in semiconductors, right? So I don't know if this is something that one company can do to build the R&D. They'll get it set up there and then can bring it back for manufacturing here. Or is there a way by which the government industry partner together in terms of building that ecosystem here in Taiwan? I mean, ultimately, what I would really love to see is, we create this kind of pipeline of startup companies to Silicon Valley. But instead of, because right now their goal is just to get acquired by the US company, which in a way is actually brain drain for Taiwan, right? Because it helps those companies, it really doesn't help Taiwan that much, right? But if you start having CDMOs out there that could help them do the trials, get the approvals and so forth, and then could bring it back to Taiwan for manufacturing. And that's the ecosystem that I think would be the formula for success.
Yeah, that's something we are thinking is how could Taiwan startup cooperate with the industries to go global or something else that is global policies. But anyway, of this, the startup from the university actually it is still tech-based, right? Then how could translate the deep tech base to the market-oriented mindset? I think that Professor Wang, would you have the some of the experience or the lessons that you got to share to us?
I can use myself, right? Because I set up a company 2 years back. We do edge computing security. We got fund also from Japan. So our strategy right now actually is go to Japan partner first. Because of their tech times, we are trying to get more influential in the area, even including Hong Kong right now. So yes, but you have to take some leading position. We are involved in the standard quite a lot, right, in the past. So we know what it need to be there, right? And then you have to identify a regional partner. So my strategy is instead of go to US, we'll go to other areas first, right? So Japan, Southeast Asia. And Singapore is some place like easy to participate, get fund, and go to Southeast Asia. But recently, actually, Indonesia, Thailand, they're also very kind of liberal in terms of the participants. And but the challenge is because of every country have their own problems and issues in the result. So recently, like last week, we actually bring 16 to Kyushu, very friendly area, and then they take time. But once you get there, they can get access to other cities in Japan as well. But so this is my strategy because in terms of head in the US, how about we actually go around other area and then become influential in the region, and then we can kind of find collaboration on the business opportunity at the so-called US, which is I would say harder to compete at the time if you are not mature enough. And the young entrepreneur, which is great. I mean, be there and try to experience it, the so-called vibrance environments is so stimulated. So there's quite a lot, our startup got really impact in terms of, then that's the competition. So they come back and think about their strategy of things that can be done. So I think early stage will be great to participate in the ecosystem, which got a little bit stimulation of the way they think differently. But you want to do head-to-head competition, I would say very challenging because the US VC probably not interested to invest in a Taiwan registered company. So then you have to do everything not really your core, but just to company structure. To do is here and there, maybe go restaurants here and there, right? So why not just go to the market first, and then we'll go back to compete with the US competitor, which mine has. And Europe also quite open at this point, right? So Europe, so that's why in the Taiwan reality is small, strategically you have to find regional partner to participate, but they have to be very so-called open to really willing to collaborate with you, right? Or joint investment, business collaboration. And if that's the case, you probably be able to enter the market gradually, but strategically you have to get a lot of funding. I think funding is not quite a big issue for now, actually. But just the question why they want to give you money to do what, right? So again, US is a little bit spectacle of what we can do, but for the young entrepreneur, that's a great place to have a practice. That's my view.
Wow. So your strategy is that first of all, pick up the CEO or the founder who has the entrepreneur like you, right? And then directly go send out to prop the market, and then back to them to compete with them directly, and then to look up for the partners locally.
Because we did that in China, right? And there's really challenges. Before they actually say, okay, if you are not interested in China market, we are not interested. Right now, that's the other way around. So. But same China, the same situation, because it's very competitive, right? So if you go directly, you pretty much die there, right? Because the first there's IPR issue, there's a lot of issues back. But if you actually have a regional position, then you have a chance because you are much stronger.
Yes.
And you're already in the position, you have the market access, right? And then you actually decide to go to China or West, here in Europe, right? So in that case, that would be more chance to success. Yeah, that's right.
Wow, thank you very much. So today we have asked the three very important people as VIP, two questions. How could the university to create in the startup momentum and join the activity, right? So we have the VC, we have a lot of the accelerator and cooperate with the related organization, and we also have the real experience take it out. And then how could we really link or gather the resources to help Taiwan startup team? We also have a lot of ideas to share, right? So, right now, are there any audience that could have questions they got to ask our VIP? Oh, I'm old enough, sorry. Oh. One of the questions from the online is that your fund only accept in-house Berkeley teams or would consider exceptionally teams from Taiwan. I think that is for you, right?
So first, Berkeley Catalyst Fund is not limited to Berkeley deals. So we've invested in deals from UCSF and also from farther away. But we spend a lot of time in Berkeley. So we do have a heavy deal flow from there. It's a small fund. So our fund documents restrict us to US investments. So the company needs to be headquartered there. It could be founders from anywhere. We have many immigrant founders. One nice thing at Berkeley is it's a very diverse population of entrepreneurs. We have lots of immigrants from everywhere. It's just that the company needs to be headquartered in the US.
Good, thank you. Well, the answer for the Yushin Shu
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's the one that went public.
Oh, I see.
Portfolio. So actually, 4D Molecular built their company largely on strategic partnerships with different pharma companies, and they did different programs with different companies. It is a public company now, but I think that there's no reason they wouldn't be open to partnering if it makes sense. And David Kern is the CEO, also a Berkeley alum. And yeah, it's a great company. I think it's about resources probably at this point. They've got 5 programs going in the clinics.
I see. Also, is that 4DMT in your team, right? Is it?
Yeah.
It's the, my name is Ken. We are of the several office and headquarters in Hsinchu and Taipei, helping university innovation and Is that your team, huh?
I don't know if they say that it is.
Okay, no matter what. If you think your team is quite good, please come to approach them. Are there any questions? Okay, please.
So, excuse my ignorance if this is a dumb question. I think what you guys are doing is very interesting, and I think Laura and Michael, you guys have maybe an interesting perspective. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. There seems to be almost an unlimited appetite for therapeutics and molecules and all these different types of pharmaceutical and other types of interventions. But I haven't seen a lot of funding models around preventative medicine, even though there is like a lot of accepted clinical data and studies that say that that's effective. There's huge healthcare spend, there's huge insurance spend. Are there models for funding that type of innovation, or are there people doing good things in that area? Especially to Michael, you're Dean of Public Health, so I'm curious your perspective.
So that's part of the criteria that we look for in terms of the teams that we select, is what's their public health value, especially around prevention. Because honestly, if we keep trying to find those billion-dollar drugs, and with the aging population here in Taiwan and in the United States, with more than 65 million people turning 65 and older, 2/3 of them will have 2 or more chronic diseases for which our healthcare system isn't ready to, isn't equipped to set up to deal with. We're going to just completely bankrupt the next generation, right? So exactly kind of what we're kind of looking for is what are some of those things that could help. So one of the company I talked about around the kind of using AI, looking at brain imaging for early early prediction and hopefully prevention of dementia. It's the same idea, right? And some of the research that my faculty's been doing, actually, both at School of Public Health and the Berkeley Lawrence Laboratory, is that they're actually finding the deposition of the beta amyloid and the tau proteins in, the beta amyloids in the brain of people not in the 70s and 80s, but in people like me in my 50s. And in a way, it's actually not surprising. Because like 20 years ago, we figured out that we were finding atherosclerotic plaques in people in their 20s and 30s, right? So the pre-disease process is already starting. The problem we have right now is exactly what you're pointing to. For someone like me, what can I do right now to prevent the onset of dementia 20, 30 years later, right? We don't have anything that works. And that's the kind of investment that we be making. Those are the kind of startups that we really need to be supporting, just to make sure that we keep our eyes on the prize and finding solutions to the kind of big problems that society is facing.
Good. Does that answer your questions?
Funding model for that though, like who is actually going to be first investor for something like that? I haven't seen an appetite for it.
So I was trying to think of where do I see these things, and I think the most active area is in what we call digital health. So a lot of the digital health technologies are to try to give you a leg on prevention, right? But from a venture capital point of view, it is difficult to figure out what the right revenue model is for those companies. So as an investor, I see a lot of very compelling solutions. You get excited about them. When you dig into the business case and the revenue model, they often fall short. And as investors, we often talk about, gosh, why are we having so much trouble seeing how to make these work financially? And it's frustrating because we want those solutions to work. And I don't know, Michael, you may be able to comment better on this, but my perception also is in diagnostics, for example, there's much more appetite to invest in those in Asia than in the US. I think it has to do with reimbursement. You see that?
I don't know if I know Asia well enough to know what their investment patterns are here. But yeah, no, I think you're asking a really good question. Is what's the financing model for on prevention side? Because typically, when we think about that, we think of either government programs or we think of foundations, right? And we try to think of like creative ways by which we do like double bottom line, where you're trying to create a return that will support something that has kind of a lot less return. But that's where we're like looking to our VC experts to really help us kind of guide us in terms of how do you develop almost kind of social impact funding that's sustainable.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Please raise your hand. We only have like 10 minutes. We still have 10 minutes. Positive point.
Sorry to repeat, the company actually will join the Access to Taiwan program.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's finally you look at it how we give you time. Thank you very much. But I would like to ask the Michael and Laura, what do you think, sir? Are there any? Do you think the startups in the US they are willing to go to Taiwan and recruit a team like mixed teams? Are they willing to do that? The US startup. US startup to go to Taiwan looking for the talent or looking for the supply chain and recruit the team here to have the mixed team, or recruit the startups at Taiwan, the startup Taiwan, and then join together. How is the opportunities? How is the chance to do this?
I think the best chance is if there's somebody who's familiar with Taiwan already on the US side of that, and then they can recruit on the Taiwan side. Then, but
Most of the startup in the US are they familiar with Taiwan?
no, I mean, I have to tell you, it's very discouraging. I can tell you, many of my countrymen don't know the difference between Taiwan and Taiwan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, it's embarrassing. But when I came home from Taiwan, as a grad student, people didn't understand where I was,
Oh,
And if they do know Taiwan, they know TSMC. And I always say, there's more to Taiwan than TSMC,
oh.
There's a lot of good stuff going on, right? I think they need a concierge to help them navigate. It's just too big a barrier by yourself. You don't know how to do it. But I think if you give an easy on-ramp and enable it, there's no reason U.S. startups would be against it. They just don't know do it or to even think of it. But if I go to, like water harvesting, right, David Quo, and I say, David, we need to think about moving this supply chain to Taiwan. Here's a phone number. Call my friend. He'll help you. He's all over that. But he's fine with that because it's not scary to him. He knows how to navigate. He's got the language.
I see. I see.
But I think that's where the hub maybe could help is to bridge. But one thing I learned about with the pandemic, as much as we all learned how to use Zoom, there's really no replacement for face-to-face interaction with people, especially if you're trying to build teams or build trust. This was a conundrum for investors who, most investors have a rule that they have to meet the team in person. And that was a challenge with Zoom. But I think that to facilitate that in an intentional way, it can work.
I'll answer it a couple ways. So number one, I completely agree with Laura that for most U.S. startups, they just don't really know Taiwan and Taiwanese kind of innovators and entrepreneurs and so forth. And the big question for them is why would they want to recruit somebody from Taiwan? Like, there's so many innovators and entrepreneurs that can be part of the team in the U.S. and the world's so big, right? So what does Taiwan innovators and entrepreneurs bring to the table that the U.S. team would want Taiwanese partners to be part of it? So that's a kind of big strategic question for TTA, for Taiwanese government, so forth. What is it that Taiwan offer that nobody else can offer? Okay? And then, of course, then that goes to my second point, which I mentioned earlier, is around manufacturing. Right, and here again, so last year I was trying to negotiate a partnership between Jennifer Downa and IGI with Terry Guo at Foxconn, right? Because Terry Guo, as most of you know, was making this PSS box for kind of rapid diagnostic, kind of in-home diagnostic for COVID. And the PCR in the machine takes about 90 minutes. Actually, it's kind of pretty accurate. But he had heard that Jennifer was kind of working on a CRISPR-based rapid diagnostic that can do this under 30 minutes. So he was really hoping to put that CRISPR in the box. And remember, this was at a time when the U.S. was running out of rapid antigen tests, right? And that's where that partnership also made a lot of sense, right? Because if Terry was able to, and for various reasons, including patent reasons and so forth, that partnership did not work out. But do you think that if you could actually put CRISPR in that box, and that box can basically make the diagnosis in less than 30 minutes, and that at steady state, Foxconn could probably produce 100,000 units of these boxes every month. According to them, it could cost about $100 each, $3 for each test. Right? Now you're going to have a test that's faster, better, cheaper than what was kind of available in the market. Also, that was a big aha for me, just in terms of if Jennifer, IGI, and Mammoth only sold the patent to want to manufacture this somewhere, they got to manufacture somewhere, right? They don't have the manufacturing capability. Why not Taiwan? Right? Why not Foxconn? Why not? So that's another big strategic question for Taiwan. It's, what do you want to be the best in the world at in this industry? Because if you're trying to compete around the R&D or with Gilead and all of these other companies, are you going to be successful, or is there a strategic advantage that Taiwan brings to the world that will make Taiwan the best in the world?
Yes. I cannot bring you a big question to Director Alden. It's really got to think about this. That's quite important though, or whether we got to engage more the ecosystem internationally, and also we could have the joint partnership with the others. Whether you got to say something to our Taiwan startup to have a good preparations to go global.
Well, I think Taiwan right now, actually, I have to say, is quite sophisticated already. They have multi-stage engagements. They have various program, government tools. We have a partner. Because I think the one thing before I say anything, we need to let Laura know even more what we can do. So she can give a so-called a suggestion, and that will be kind of the startup or whatever company in the US, they will say, oh yeah, sure, right? Because like 30 years back, whatever they want to do, we have come to ask Taiwan each. We say, okay, we do this, okay, the 20, maybe only like 25% cost of what they are doing there, right? But recently, probably not, right? They can go to Shenzhen as well. So the dietary shift in terms of the manufacturing capability is not only Taiwan, so it could be any other places. So it's difficult to use the same logic to actually do the attraction. But if you think about that, like Umbrella, Unbar actually tried to find a research team in Taiwan, very success, right? And APS, same thing, narrow something, right? So, I mean, Taiwan have their own strengths in terms of not only manufacturing the IC design, algorithm, but no one knows. And, it's still Taiwan, Thailand, right? So, if you think about it, it's nothing to do with the people who have now relationship with Taiwan. They don't know how to leverage Taiwan's strengths. But if you look at an key opinion leader who know you have long-term relationship, if you really make a recommendation, they'll take more things seriously.
Yes.
That, right? So I mean, just try to catch. We need to have more Laura scholar really know Taiwan, and they can make a proper recommendation. As I said, Taiwan right now is a little bit it's more than simple just they have an issue. It's like where they go. Right now it's like they go to US, go to Europe, go to Japan, go to South Asia. They have options. So the options that we want to go first is with the reason, right? If I see the big benefit in the US market, then we go, right? But then where is the partner to participate, right? So we're going to be there to help. Because if think about the startup, they have a lack of the resource, right? So they cannot take too much risk if there's local people to really collaborate. And that need a platform, to do so, right? So the ecosystem Taiwan need to have is a global partner as well, which can do business, mentor, whatever that is, right? So once you set it up, you can always go to Belgium first and go to Europe. You can go to France, to Germany, or you can go to Luxembourg. So just depend on who can help you to establish the company. So if you really think about in the US, then we have to find very sincere partner there. They know the differences, what's the gap there, and then what's the mechanism to establish right at Taiwan to be cost effective, and then reach them to do something which success rate will be increased. So I think my suggestion is, I think startup cannot really do that alone. But they can join the Berkeley program.
Yes.
Right? So that's one way to do it.
Yes.
At least to know what's going on there.
Oh, very good, very good. So Professor Wang is also mentioned that the big guy referral quite important. That's one thing. The second thing is a partner, and the local partner is also very important. And he also mentioned the third thing. So the third thing is that we got to choose and we got to select 3 teams to Silicon Valley very soon. Please, where is the barcode? Please, where is the barcode? We got to select the 3 teams after we have the presentation. For 3 months. Please. And then the second page. Here. The end of the March, okay? We got to pick up 3 teams to link with these 3 guys for 80 days, 3 months almost, as soon as possible to register, please. All right. So if there is no any questions, we got to have the last sentence. They give you the last sentence, good words, and also suggestions to our Taiwan staff.
Let me just say that Taiwan is an incredibly entrepreneurial place. And I've met some of the best entrepreneurs here. You guys are capital efficient, focus, get things done. So there's actually a lot that US entrepreneurs can learn. And so don't forget that. You have a strength that I think needs to be shared with the world too. So there's a give and take.
Right, thank you, Seth. We have our strength, we have our advantage. We need more entrepreneurship, please.
Yeah, well, let me just first of all, I'm just so proud to be Taiwanese American, and I do agree that Taiwan has so many incredible strengths, and whether it's in ICT, whether it's in manufacturing, one of the best healthcare systems in the world, and really some of the hardest working innovators and entrepreneurs that I've ever met. And so I think the future is really bright for Taiwan. The question is the big strategy. How do we get from here to there? And what do people like Laura and myself, how can we be most helpful to help Taiwan?
Good, thank you very much. The future is bright. We need the global and we need the big strategy. That how can we link them together, right? Please.
Very easy. This one, right? You have to be there long enough to be really know what you can do. Don't just be there for a week. It's just a vacation, so it's like 3 months program. I closed, and that's the minimum. I think as if you cannot compete with this, how can you be in that kind of position to compete then?
Thank you. But definitely, yourself to become like an entrepreneurship of the Professor Wang, and then bring yourself to the top in our direct competitor, right? Is that your way, right? Oh, that's good, very nice. So this is the end of our panel discussion. If you have more questions, then you got to approach our VIP offline. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Louis, and to all three panelists for the brilliant and insightful forum. May I ask our distinguished guests to join our audience for a photo?